healers, friends. We saved the seat at the head of the table for our guest of honor, and that is you. And so if you want to know what the Vantage Point looks like, you can just go online right now. On the World Wide Web, we can be found at kvoi.com. Just click on Watch Us Now, and you can see us live in the studio. We start the week off every week with a little extra bonus, the Facebook Live that we do, courtesy of Pima County Supervisor Ramone Valadez, who joins us each and every Monday to kick off the week with a powerful, nutritious, stimulating, interesting conversation about positivity and the intention that we approach the week with. This is a big, big week, I have to say. It's the last week in August. We're going to kick over to September a little later on. It's going to be Labor Day weekend. But I've got big things happening this week. Everybody's got a lot going on. We're back at school. The U of A is back in town. And if you hadn't noticed, if you hadn't felt that, well, the energy has shifted profoundly. And so there's a lot going on. It's back to school time. I'm not quite ready to put my white shoes away, but that's another story. There's peaches on the trees still at Apple Annie's, so it's not quite the new season, but it's not quite the old season either. It's not summer, but it's not autumn. I love that time. We're here on this particular day, ready to kick off a powerful, positive week with Ramone Valadez, who does join us as the co-host each and every Monday. The Pima County Supervisor is not here necessarily in a traditional role. He is joining me each week to help me. He is a life coach, and I am so privileged to call him my friend, my mentor. And in terms of coaching, I have learned so much in the time that we've been working together. I cannot thank him enough. And I hope that the things that we do together on the air bring you a lot of inspiration, and that they stimulate you to go and look a little bit deeper, ask more questions, and take the ceiling off the room of possibilities so that it becomes limitless. That's the kind of inspiration I glean from our times together, and I hope that you do too. It's with that spirit of gratitude that he inspires and cultivates in me that I say, welcome, Ramone Valadez. How are you?
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And as usual, I don't deserve the praise that you give me.
Well, I think you do. Good of you to come and tell me I'm wrong. I love that. You know, that's so funny because that's one of those ego things. Like, I have to be right. It's like, I used to want to be right all the time. And what's really happened is I almost hate being right now, because being right means something isn't going the way I want it to go. And that's a whole nother subject for another day. So when we come together at the beginning of every week, by the way, you've just been away, so you've had a reboot.
I have. My wife and I got to travel to visit family over in the San Jose, Cupertino area.
Oh, nice.
And so we just got back yesterday afternoon.
So I saw you in some natural, beautiful settings. It looked like you were hiking. Certainly looked like you were eating well. And this was all part of a wonderful celebration of yours. But I saw you doing some unusual things. What's the culture like in California right now? Because when you're here in Arizona and you're here all summer, you kind of get into that, this is almost like our summer hibernation mode, and you don't pay as much attention necessarily. You kind of just go into like lower your heart rate kind of mode. But it looked really interesting what you were doing. Tell us a little bit, what's going on in Silicon Valley?
Well, I'll tell you what, one of our relatives there works at Apple now.
Very cool.
In the new offices, and obviously
is that the spaceship?
It is. But I'll also tell you that apparently he can't talk about anything that's there yet. At this point, they don't even allow the families in at this point.
Oh, wow.
He used to work over at the Googleplex, and so I got to go to the Googleplex when he was there. And before that, he worked for Tesla.
Oh, interesting.
And so I actually did get a tour of the Fremont plant where they make the Teslas when he was there. So there's a lot of things going on there, and a lot of the reason we went is because the last week was my wife's 29th birthday, or anniversary of her 29th birthday, rather.
Yeah.
And so it was just a really nice reason to get away and visit family and have fun with them. We got a chance to spend time with with the kids, and got to what you saw in the videos. We got to go through some of the redwoods up by Felton, California, and then we took for lunch. We went over to Carmel by the sea because we'd never really been there.
Isn't it beautiful?
Oh, it is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, the interesting part is that the real estate in California is a little prohibitive.
Yeah, well, it's pricier than Tucson.
Well, we looked at some of the houses just on some of the applications. We can look on the phone, and for a 1,600 square feet, depending on where it was, you were looking anywhere from $1 million to $3 million. That's sort of, I don't know what kind of value that scale that is.
Kind of an ordinary house is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Typical.
Very typical, nothing special, relatively small house.
You know, one of the top realtors in the Silicon Valley area is a Tucsonan, Christopher Fling. People might remember him. His family owns Gus Ballon's restaurant.
Oh, okay.
And he became a realtor, and he's really successful. And he was with Keller Williams for a long time, and now he's in the Silicon Valley area, tearing it up and doing great. So if you're thinking of relocating, call Chris Fling. What was really interesting to me is I know you're an engineer. And so how can you go to the land of engineers? I mean, that's like going to Disneyland, I'm going to imagine, or, Oxford and Cambridge. How do you go to a place that has all that energy and intellectual and engineering firepower and that sort of crackling energy of invention and inspiration? How does that inspire you?
Well, yeah, as I said, we can't really visit the campus at this point because that's not allowed. When we visit the other campus, just it does appeal to one, particularly as an engineer, just the possibilities, of what that technology can do for the world, for people, just endless possibilities. It ties in. And I'm going to do a little bit of a tease real nicely to the word of the day.
Okay. Our concept, our theme.
It is.
Okay. So you were away and you were in California, and I was trying to think what the word could possibly be. And I just keep coming back to this notion of adventure.
Sort of.
Okay.
The word today is curiosity.
Ooh, I love that.
Because if we all close our eyes for just a moment and think back to when we were children, lying in our beds in our rooms oftentimes, or watching, in my case, science fiction, you were just amazed and about the possibilities of what was possible. Just like Silicon Valley. What is possible for people, for the planet, for to make life better, to sustain life? What is, we had so many questions, but all those questions dealt with what is possible. And as kids, sometimes we think, and rightfully so, that possibility is infinite, because it is. And somewhere along the path from that point in time to when many of us become adults, we lose that curiosity. And with that, we lose to a great degree, the recollection that we need to keep asking questions.
Right.
I mean, think about this. Do you remember when you asked an adult, why is the sky blue?
Yeah, but I'm not a fair ask because, first of all, I'm a talk show host.
Not then.
My stock in... Yeah, but I was. And when you see precocious videos of people from a professional life when they were young doing their thing, Tiger Woods hitting a golf ball on TV when he was 3 or 4, I ask questions all the time, and I still do. And so for me, this topic, it's like saying, let's talk about air or water or food, because it's the thing that drives me. And I'm not curious for the sake of curiosity's sake. I'm curious for the sake of connection and common ground. So I want to ask you, what does curiosity mean to you in the context of having it be our word of the day?
Well, that's a very good question.
See, I'm curious, and thank you.
And I'm glad you asked. Right now, I'm reading a book by Gary Keller called The One Thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really what gave me the idea for the word today. If we really think about when you think of the questions or think of curiosity, to me, curiosity is very equal to questions. And one of the things, if you really think about it, the quality of our life is really determined by the quality of the questions we ask ourselves. The quality of our life is determined by the quality of the questions we ask ourselves. I mean, if we look at even at the Socratic method of teaching that's been around for over 2,000 years, and yes, some people don't really like to do it, but it's teaching through questions. And as a matter of fact, Harvard Law School still uses it, as do many kindergarten classes. And the questions engage our critical thinking. And research shows, here's the funny part, research shows that asking questions improves our learning and our performance as much as 150%. So again, I pick curiosity as the word, but the action of that word is asking questions.
Right.
Oftentimes, if you really think about it, we talked last week when we talked about growth about when Mark Cole, the CEO of the Maxwell companies, listened to John Maxwell talking about personal growth, he started asking himself certain questions. Where do I want to go? Who do I want to be? What are my obstacles to getting there? Mm-hmm. He started asking himself higher level questions that then improve the quality of his life. What we need to do oftentimes, and that curiosity is as the wonderful engine for it, is start asking ourselves, okay, where do I want to be in 5 years? And it shouldn't be where I am today, because frankly, we all should look at every day as an opportunity to grow. Because obviously we're doing one of two things. We're either growing or headed in the other direction.
Right.
Some people might refer to that as dying. And so, I mean, Dr. Maxwell and some of the other coaches that have been around forever and ever are right when they start talking about how we have a need as human beings to continue to grow.
When we talk about curiosity and you tie it together with questions and the asking of thoughtful questions, I have to ask the question, where do you think questions come from? Do you think that they are organic inspirations? Are they... Because the next thought becomes, where does thought come from? Where does curiosity come from? Is it a spontaneous, organic action, or is it something that you can will yourself to think? Is it something that you can will yourself to experience? And do questions exist sort of on their own? Or are they part of a bigger thing, like an energetic frame of reference? Or are they part of a pattern? Or are they part of a life moment for someone? How do questions come to you? How do questions come to any of us?
I think there's no one answer to that one. In truth, I think the asking good questions or asking questions by their nature can be really all of those different processes you talked about and are as individual as we are individuals. So I think in some cases, some questions, oftentimes I'll be journaling and a question will occur to me, and just so that I don't forget it, I'll write it down. Other times I'll be listening to somebody and processing what they're telling me, and I think we've all had that phenomenon where like, ooh, I have a question. And then other times different processes bring about. So I don't think it's one process that has all our questions, but it's really, I think, important as human beings so that we can continue to grow and expand and experience new things like we did with the Redwoods, like we did the going to Carmel, like we did going to Silicon Valley, like we do with all our experiences, is be curious. Hey, I want to know what that's like.
Somebody could ask how it happens for me, because as a question professional, it would be a reasonable thing to ask. I'm kind of grateful no one's asked me up until this point, because I still don't know that I would have an answer. But it's really interesting to consider how the biggest businesses in the world, businesses like Google, are predicated on the curiosity or the question. And that the quality of the question does not necessarily relate to the quality of the answer in the world in general. Even on something like Google. It's not like if you ask an even better Google question, you get an even better Google answer. I mean, you might, but Google's not designed for that. Google's designed to give you about the best answer you can get.
Yeah, but remember, we're asking it to search. It's not truly necessarily a question. It's kind of like when we went. How many of us remember when we had those of us who are a little older probably remember our encyclopedias. And I used to love the encyclopedia because almost anything you wanted to know was in there back then.
Right.
And my favorite book in the encyclopedia was the index at the very end, because anything I wanted to know was in there and I could just point at it and then look it up.
God, you're so funny. I love that.
But today, there's so much knowledge, there's so much information, that's not possible. And one can argue that particularly when we're dealing with asking questions of others and asking questions of ourselves, more importantly, that the quality of the answer is dependent on the quality of the question. If you really think about it, part of the ways we grow in ourselves is we ask ourselves the tough questions. And I call them tough for a reason.
Well, let's talk about tough questions on the other side of this break. It's 1:22 p.m. We're having lunch with Pima County Supervisor Ramone Valadez, live from the City of Gastronomy. This is Around the Table, breaking bread with the most interesting and influential newsmakers, tastemakers, lawmakers, style makers, movers, shakers, healers, foodies, friends, and you. So don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back, everybody. 1:25 p.m. straight up, and you are tuned in to AM 1030 The Voice, trusted local news and talk. You can find us on the World Wide Web. On Facebook Live right now, we're at Ramone Valadez 67, or you can just go to kvoi.com, click on Watch Now, and join us on our YouTube, which is 1030 The Voice, and the 1030 is numerically written. Some kudos to some very curious, very creative, very talented people who had a dinner last night in Tucson, Arizona. The Gastronomic Union of Tucson had its third and final dinner of the summer season. The Gastronomic Union of Tucson, or GUT as it is known, is a collaboration of over 36 chefs and food professionals. Following Tucson's designation by UNESCO as a World City of Gastronomy, the chefs of GUT came together to foster a culinary community of creativity, professional development, and community engagement. In other words, conviviality. The dynamic food scene here in Tucson is more than its exceptional restaurants. It's the seed libraries, it's the food banks, it's the community gardens, the 4,000-year agricultural history, the farmers markets, the breweries, the wineries, the distilleries, growers and ranchers, and most importantly, the Tucson community that supports them. GUT, or the Gastronomic Union of Tucson, seeks to bring these elements together both to honor our collective food heritage and to foster culinary innovation and creative exchanges. And I want to say especially to Devin Sanner, who's the executive chef at the Carriage House where the event took place. This beautiful dinner, which was the Deception Dinner, was really, I think, the highlight of the year. They did an extraordinary job. And I want you to imagine Deception. They started out with a French tiered pastry passer, like sort of like a little tray. So, one of those things you sort of hold and it has a small dish and then a larger dish and then a very large dish at the bottom. It's tiered. It's like a serving tray. And you might carry it around. And if you go to afternoon tea, it might have cookies on one and, little biscuits on the next or crumpets. Well, they had macaroons, they had chocolates, hand-dipped, handmade chocolates, and they did a cream puff, like a choux, like a pâté choux. And each of them looked like the most beautiful pastries you'd seen in a long time. And you said to yourself, where is this bakery in Tucson? Where is this new bakery? And of course, when you took one bite, the macaron was filled with smoked salmon mousse. The chocolate itself, which was a very nice dark chocolate, was filled with chicken mole. So things looked one way, but they tasted another. They had a cocktail that tasted one way, then you tasted a berry And then after you tasted the berry, it changed the whole pH of your mouth, and it tasted different. They did a lot of things like that. It was really clever. It was really delicious. So kudos to them. Ramone Valadez joins us each and every single Monday, and we go on a trajectory of positive energy. He joins us each week with a word, a concept that helps put in perspective and context the beautiful, vibrant, thoughtful, creative world that we occupy here. And today's word is curiosity, which I absolutely adore. But then again, I ask questions for a living. Ramone Valadez, welcome back.
Thank you, Jennifer. And yes, you do. Wonderful questions at that.
Well, you know, what's interesting is a Pima County supervisor, you also have to ask a lot of questions professionally. Do you find that as a politician and as a supervisor, as opposed to a lifelong learner or an entrepreneur, that you have become more skillful and schooled in the crafting and the asking of questions?
I would tell you that as anyone who is in a leadership position has to continue to grow and read and learn and expand yourself as you continue to grow and expand yourself. And think about this, personal growth and just growth in general does develop our brain in a very physiological and physical even way. So I would argue that absolutely, as we continue to grow ourselves as people, both the skill at which we ask the questions and also the kind of questions that we ask become better.
Yeah. When you're in session and you're meeting constituents or you're having evening events, do you find that the world of 24-hour news cycles and internet connectivity has turned everyone into a journalist, in the sense that the kinds of questions you used to only get from journalists, you're now getting from citizens, because everybody, by virtue of being on Instagram and Facebook or wherever they are, or Twitter, has become a virtual journalist? Are you feeling and seeing that sort of questioning, that professional questioning, taking a broader root in our contacts, in our culture, in our community?
You know, I would tell you that as a public servant, we are there to answer questions. The part that has become, I wouldn't tell you it's because of social media or the internet. It really is in the fact that we have gotten accustomed to getting our news in 10 to 20 second sound bites. And there are very, very few issues that you can really actually explain or teach people in that kind of time frame. So it's really the shortening of the attention span that has made it really, really difficult. Because I've sat here at this table with Zach earlier a couple weeks ago, and we had a conversation. And part of the reason he has a show is because he wants to explore those issues in much greater depth, much beyond that 10 to 20 second soundbite.
Right.
And as I said, I don't think any of us can really explain anything that is important to us in our own lives in those 10 and 20 seconds, let alone things that are affecting the million people or beyond that live here in Pima County.
When we're together and you come with your concept and messages that inspire me particularly, when you talk about coaching and we talk about the sort of other ways that we can enhance our understanding, and you talk about a word like curiosity, how are we being encouraged to ask better questions? How are we being called as citizens to ask better public questions? Or are we being called upon personally and spiritually and energetically to ask more importantly personal questions versus public questions? Where do you feel like the biggest push in this curiosity that we're swimming in comes from? Is it from the public side? Is it from the personal side?
I would argue I have both.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people have both. I'm trying to think about whether or not there's any level of encouragement on the public side to ask questions. And in truth, I think there are people who are very genuinely curious. But oftentimes both sides of that discussion, both the asker and the answerer and vice versa as they switch, need to be open to hearing what the answer is. Because oftentimes it's not what we expected, or it's not something we wanted to hear when it deals with the public venue. But oftentimes you present the answer and then there's a reason. And sometimes, particularly when you're dealing with public issues, the reason is actually more important than the answer, because it gives you a basis for really understanding why that was the decision that was made, as opposed to just hearing the decision.
Do you think that there's a correlation between the quality of the question and the ability of the listener or the asker of the question to listen and actually hear the answer? Are we getting better at questions and getting less good at listening to the answers?
That's a fantastic question. I have to tell you that. I will tell you that I think I would actually agree that the quality of the question is really will almost dictate the quality of the answer, because particularly if the question is one that is thought-provoking, so that someone who will ask a thought-provoking or invoking a sort of question is really kind of looking to gain that knowledge or experience. So really, they're already open. So as the person that asked that question, and oftentimes you were laughing during the break. Sometimes you will get those kind of questions where you're like, "Wow, that's a really good question."
Yeah.
And I love those questions because just me myself, because they're so thought provoking and so pushing what your standard box would be outside of just your normal box. So that absolutely, I would tell you that relationship already with the quality of the question is going to have a higher quality and answer, but it's going to more importantly evoke both the curiosity of the asker and the answerer to really kind of it's wonderful. And that's one of the things that Jennifer, I really enjoy about the show that we do, is that oftentimes we'll get on a subject and you'll ask a question in such a way and about something on that subject. I'm like, wow. And I tell my wife this all the time, and I know she's listening right now, but I tell her that all the time. I'm like, wow, I hadn't actually thought of it that way. That's such a fantastic question.
Well, it's funny because I've been doing this for 20 years, on and off. I mean, I've been very fortunate in my radio career. And sometimes I did a show on a daily basis, and sometimes I did a show once a week. But one of the things that I've learned over time is that in the asking of a question, that if I'm driven or inspired and I listen to the ask before I even ask the question, and I just trust that the question is, and again, you'll find with me, and I'm sure you notice this, I don't have a script. We don't write the questions beforehand. So there's a lot of trust that the conversation preparations that we've had will allow the conversation to flow. And when it comes to questions and guests who are experts in their field, nothing is more satisfying than when someone says, I've been doing this for 20 or 30 years and no one's ever asked me that before. That's one of my favorite responses to a good question. Or, gee, I've never thought about that. So someone's in a line of business or a career and they're in it, 2,000 hours a year and they've spent years on it, and they still can say something like, gee, I've never thought of that before. To me, that's the gift that I can give a guest, that I've spent enough time thinking about what they do. I'm so inspired and curious about what they do that I can sit there with them, experience them, whether on the phone or in person, it really doesn't matter. Because if you are there and you're present and you're honest and you're immediate in your conversation with them and you're really listening, you'll be inspired to ask a question that might have that quality. If you intend to ask questions that are going to rattle somebody to say that, you can't force it. But you can ask in a way that lets it happen naturally, and when that happens, that's the magic of the great interview.
And
I've never thought of that before.
And think about this. You've actually both grown from it.
Right.
Both grown from it. One of the things that I actually enjoy doing when I do presentations as a public figure is I often tell wherever I'm going, they'll say, well, what's the subject? I said, well, whatever they want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
You mean we can ask you questions about whatever? I'm like, yeah, if I don't know the answer, I'll find it out for you.
So I have a crazy idea.
Okay.
We didn't talk about this. We didn't plan this. But
we never do.
well, we did. We had one macro conversation that sort of is our framework. We have a gentle architecture that's very foundational, and then we sort of build up on it. I want to know if we can get a great question today. I want to know if there's anybody there with us today, sitting at our table today, watching on Facebook Live, watching on YouTube Live, listening on the terrestrial radio, listening on the World Wide Web at kvoi.com, that has a great question. And for the best question, I have a really great prize. For the best question, I have a personal, beautiful pepper grinder. Because I was in the spice business a long time, and I still tend to give these away as little gifts and prizes. So somebody could win a prize today. But it's less about the prize, and it's more about the idea that I want to hear something that I didn't dream I would hear today. And a great question will do that for you. A great question will have life and energy and body. It'll imbue with curiosity. It'll do so many things. It'll inspire, it'll inform, it'll educate, it'll challenge. I mean, questions, if you think about it. If you're good at questions, it's a pretty good place.
Yeah, and remember a lot of the questions that we ask, we also have to ask ourselves those questions, because the quality of those questions as well as the answers to those questions often determine the life we're leading.
Right.
So it's just as important to ask even first ourselves those questions, and then look out in the world and ask the world some questions.
So remember when I asked you before if somebody ever asked a question you were kind of like envious, you wish you'd asked that? There's a show. It's a podcast. And I'm a little envious of the concept and the name. I don't know that I could do this show, but I really was jealous when I heard it.
What is it?
Go ahead. Ask us anything.
Really?
Ask us anything. And all that suggests, and how freeing, and to me that's about curiosity. I mean, you could call and ask us anything. I can't tell you I might know the answer, but if I don't, I'll find something out for you. 520-790-2040 is the phone number here. 520-790-2040. 2:40 p.m. We're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, Ramone Valadez, the Pima County Supervisor, is here talking about curiosity. I almost misspoke and said creativity, but really, aren't they the same thing?
They can be.
We'll be back with more right after that. So that really powerful Hawaiian prayer, the Ho'oponopono, is life-changing for a lot of people, because when you can share that intention of, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, and it comes from authenticity and love, it can heal and empower almost anything. And we're sending that out today to our good friend Jeffrey Green, sending him loads of love. We are here each and every Monday with Pima County Supervisor Ramone Valadez, who joins us as he does each and every Monday. We are thrilled and privileged to have him join us at our table, because we get to have really fun conversations, and he's a really smart, fun guy. And what's great about Ramone is that he's an engineer, and so I'm not an engineer. In fact, I'm the opposite of engineer. And right now I'm doing a project that is requiring me to have all kinds of organizational skills. My friend Ryan Yada, who's a really fantastic entrepreneur, talks about the zone of genius, and that everybody has a zone of genius, and if you are lucky enough to live and work in your zone of genius, that you are like ahead of the game. And if you listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, who is from Vayner Media, and Gary Vaynerchuk used to come on my show like literally 20 years ago, like when nobody knew who Gary V was, and he would come on, and he was like a kid, right? And he had this dream. He had the dream that he's living right now, and he would come on and visit with me, I don't know, once a month or so. And he always had this incredible energy that he has today. And I saw a posting of his recently on Instagram, and he was calling Instagram the gram, which I thought was kind of fun. And he was talking about the fact that same thing, your zone of genius. That if you are lucky enough to be working in your zone of genius, you don't just double down, you triple down your bet on the thing that you're really good at, the thing you're passionate about, and the thing that you are put on this planet to do. And don't go chasing those things that you're not good at and expect to have the same results as that thing that you're naturally, inclined and gifted at. Now, there are some people who can just will themselves to be good at something that they're not organically good at. But even then, it's not the same as when everything that you're meant to be and everything that you're meant to accomplish is called forward and put into practice. And so today our word of the day is curiosity. And of course that automatically, if you said to someone word association, if I said the word curiosity, what's the first thing that pops into your mind? First of all, the first word I got was cat, but that's another story. Curiosity. What's the first word that comes to your mind, Ramone, when you hear the word curiosity?
Earlier in the broadcast, I asked you about the time that we were kids and we asked, "Why is the sky blue?"
I know, and I didn't answer it, did I?
No, but I remember that, and I didn't get a very good answer. And then when I later found out in life why the sky was blue, I went back to my dad and I said, "That wasn't the reason."
You know what's interesting, though?
What's that?
But you have the brain and the heart and the soul of an engineer. And so the kind of answer that you could hear from that same sort of question, you're asking an engineering kind of question, or a metaphysical question, or a spiritual question, or a technical question. And you're going to ask questions very differently based on where you start in the world. So it is from that idea that I'm going to go into this segment about the art of the question. Because one of the things we do is we don't think necessarily as much about the audience listening to the question that's going to respond to the question as we do that sort of organic impulse that we have of curiosity. And I think that's really the factor that distinguishes the sort of deliberate, intentional question, the tactical question, versus the organic question. And to me, the art of the question is the part that's the organic, inspired, natural curiosity, as opposed to that Clarence Darrow, Perry Mason, lawyer in the courtroom, tactical questions designed to the answer before you ask it. And to me, that's a whole other kind of question, and that's not what we're talking about. Curiosity doesn't lead you to those kind of questions that you already know the answer to. We're talking about the kinds of questions that you legitimately don't know the answer to. That's the realm. And then the body of this ask to you is, do you think it makes a difference if we need to imagine the who is answering this question or hearing this question? So if I'm asking an engineer a question versus a teacher versus a painter, like an artist, should I be asking this question, or do you think that just being in the presence of a flowing conversation with any of those people is going to organically lead me to the question that's right for them to hear?
Well, if you think about it, when we ask a question, you were absolutely right that oftentimes we put part of who we are into those questions.
Yeah.
So part of how we ask the questions, even sometimes why we ask the questions, really deal with who we are. So we are putting ourselves in that question. The interesting part of that, what you just asked in your question is, and what fascinates me, is you're absolutely right. If you ask somebody with a technical background, you're going to get one answer. If you ask one with an education background, you're going to get another answer. But therein is the beauty of that. Because let's say you ask 5 different people with 5 different questions. Think of that as an experience of growth and learning things and understanding things better. Because one of the things, remember when I told you that sometimes you ask me a question and I'm like, wow, my first thought is, wow, what a great question. Well, by asking such wonderful questions, such fascinating questions, we're both growing.
Yeah.
And so therein lies the fascination of that question. But depending on who you ask, you're going to get a different answer. And therein lies the opportunity for that growth.
The other general area of curiosity is the diagnostic curiosity. Sometimes we ask questions based on curiosity without a ceiling. It's limitless. We don't know where we're going. We're blue sky thinking. We're kind of dreaming and brainstorming. There's really no limit. Other times we have an assignment, or we have a target, or we have an outcome that we're desirous of and that we're shooting for. And we have to get really diagnostic about the kinds of questions that we ask. And again, I don't think of that so much as born of curiosity. If you have a good sense of curiosity, you might then subsequently have a good sense about question asking. But that's a different kind of thing. That diagnostic question, like, well, how long have you been unable to sleep? Or how long has your toe hurt? Or, like, not that kind of diagnostic so much as, how long have you felt that way? And in your career as a mentor and as a life coach and a business coach, I'm going to imagine that diagnostic curiosity is going to be something that you would say would be really important. Is that the case?
I will tell you that oftentimes, especially as somebody who has coached different people in different businesses, I will tell you that part of the gift of being a coach isn't really knowing necessarily the answer, because the subject matter expert is the person you're trying to coach. Right. It's really knowing the questions to ask, or having some idea of the questions to ask to move them forward, whether it's in personal growth, whether it's in business growth, whether it's questions that, just like I told you earlier, sometimes you ask me those great questions that, eureka, wow, what a great question. I hadn't thought of that. Those are really the ones that push our existing boundaries beyond where we are today and create that person or that business that we want to be in the future.
I think great questions are a gift. And if you're really thoughtful about gift giving, and in this instance, if you're thoughtful about the questions you give to someone to consider before they answer, there should be a gift in it for them. A growth gift, an awakening gift, an awareness gift. I mean, there's lots of ways to sort of look at that. We've got about 4 minutes left, and we welcome your calls and questions. 520-790-2040. 520-790-2040. Pima County Supervisor Ramone Valadez joins us every Monday. What are the tips, the coaching tips, that you can share with us to help us ask better questions, be more curious in every aspect of our life? Let's start with in where we work, regardless of the kind of work we do.
I will tell you that one of the errors that oftentimes we make, and I think we've talked about it in a previous show, is that when we're in a conversation with somebody, we're listening to respond to what they just said to us. So that we're not really listening to understand. Mm-hmm. We're not really listening to really kind of ingest what they're sharing with us. We're listening to respond. One of the key things to asking really great questions is don't stop that. Stop that. Listen not with any intent to respond, but to really think about what is being shared with you. Because oftentimes what's being shared with us is more important than that response that we want to give so desperately. So stop listening to respond and start listening. And oftentimes if we just say, you know what, I hadn't thought of that, give me a moment to think about that a little more, and then respond.
What are the things that help you be the best, most curious person you can be?
My DNA.
No, but like, do you journal? Do you?
Right. I'm actually naturally gifted in curiosity. My favorite question, since possibly my first word was why.
Yeah.
That would account for why I have a degree in engineering. But in truth, there's a number of different tools, and oftentimes if we just read John Wooden, who is
the basketball coach?
The basketball coach, but more important than basketball coach, educator, life educator.
Yeah.
He actually mentored John Maxwell. I don't know if most people actually know that. But he used to say to read really good books, because oftentimes they present us with different ideas that really kind of open up our mind so that we can come up with different ways of thinking. And then you're absolutely right. A really great question is such a gift, but we have to give it with that intent.
Who are some public figures in our community that ask great questions publicly?
Wow.
You're lucky you've got less than 60 seconds on that one.
You know, and when I tell you, I'm going to go, instead of local figures, I'm going to change the question around because it's an easier question. Really, if you take a look at some of the coaches that I listen to, whether it's John Maxwell, Brendan Burchard, Tony Robbins, on and on, they are the ones that ask about basic questions, but phenomenal questions that push us.
So you haven't encountered somebody in the public forum here that's pushed you a little bit, that's really helped you be the best public servant and leader you could be? Have you encountered that foil yet?
You know, I have on a number of occasions, but there's a lot of them, each of which gave me a little piece.
Well, you give me a great big piece of inspiration each and every week. You can be found on the World Wide Web at Ramone Valadez 67, and your office can be found where, sir?
724-8492, and also thank you to our Facebook Live listeners for joining us as well.
This is the end of the first hour. We've got one more to go. When you get home today, do me a favor. Hug your kids and count your blessings, and please don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more right after this. .2:06 p.m. We're having lunch here at the Test Kitchens at radio station KVOI. AM 1030, The Voice. Trusted local news and talk, where each and every afternoon we invite the most interesting and influential newsmakers, tastemakers, style makers, lawmakers, movers and shakers, healers, foodies, friends. And we save the seat at the head of our table for you, our guest of honor. I'm thrilled you're here with us. If you just want to watch on your computer, you can check in and see my fantastic studio here. Just go to kvoi.com and click on Watch Now. And you can, as always, visit us on YouTube Live at 1030 The Voice. So in this hour, we're going to kick off the rest of the week. We're going to talk to one of my all-time favorite people. She is a coach. Her name is Coach Dawn English. She's going to be joining us a little later on in the hour. And as we get ready to segue the season, you know, the University of Arizona students are back, and August is going to give way to September. And while we're heading into Labor Day weekend, we can start thinking about, I know people are already talking about pumpkin spice. There are already Halloween candies on the shelves. That's a little too fast for my taste. I like a more gentle segue from season to season. But one of the things that does happen this time of year is that the boys and girls of the hospitality industry here in Tucson, the professionals that make this literally one of the most delicious places on the planet, get to play a little bit more before we hit, you know, that idea of work hard, play hard. Well, Tucsonans' hospitality industry works hard and plays hard. And in the last 48 hours, we've had some really great examples of how we all benefit from the play hard piece of this. The Gastronomic Union of Tucson dinner was last night. It was really lovely. And we'll talk about that. It took place at the Carriage House. And kudos to all of the chefs who participated, including David Solorzano, who from Panka Restaurant did an amazing course. But the Gourmet Girls did this fantastic segue to the start of the dinner by saying, life is short, eat dessert first. So all of the appetizers were presented last night on these fantastic 3-tiered trays, and they looked like little pastries. So they did little chocolate truffles that were actually chicken mole truffles. They did macarons, you know, those fancy French cookies that are round and they almost look like tiny little edible sweet treat cheeseburgers. Well, these were done with smoked salmon mousse. So it was a smoked salmon mousse macaron. And then they did parfaits with roasted corn and a little bit of kale. And then Vanessa Moon did this incredible Merlot cran cherry with chicken pate mousse that I don't even know how to describe how delicious it was. There was a kiss of sage in it, and the whole thing, the bite when you took it, just was the most surprising and deceptively delicious morsel of food. Of course, the idea was deception. That was the concept last night. Tonight is the next round of Knife Fight, where many of the same chefs who were there last night are going to be competing in head-to-head competitions. And in this competition, they are given blind box ingredients. They're judged for the dishes that they prepare by a panel of expert judges. But the whole evening starts off with a cocktail competition. The cocktail fight is the second round, and tonight's participants are going to be making original cocktails. I think they do 3 or 4. Now, if you want to go to any of these events, you can go to Knife Fight, and all the proceeds from Knife Fight go to benefit the Hospitality Industries Relief Fund that Pat Connors set up. Our friend Pat Connors has been gone a couple of years now. Still hard to believe. Those words come haltingly out of my mouth. I can't believe he's gone. But he set the bar pretty high for taking care of our own. And that is all taking place tonight at the playground. We're going to go now to the phones and welcome from the playground Rachel DeQuesta, who is the United States Bartenders Guild chapter president, who was in charge of yesterday's big fun event for the industry. It was called Bar Olympics, where teams of competitors got to have a lot of fun, stay inspired, and trust me, what you're going to be sipping over the next year was inspired by what happened yesterday. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome. Hi, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
I feel like I should say to you, what'll you have? The Bar Olympics is something that has a really profound impact on our community and our culture in a couple of ways. One, it really inspires the kids. And two, a lot of fun and collegiality, camaraderie take place. Talk about the United States Bartenders Guild membership and this community as a sipping community and the bar chefs, mixologists, and bartenders that participated yesterday. What is Bar Olympics?
Bar Olympics, it's our 6th year running, but it is a place for teams comprised of local bars or restaurant employees to come together and compete in a friendly competition and just to get together and put each other to the test.
When we talk about this, were there actual competitions like, what's the equivalent of the cocktail javelin throw?
Well, there's 2 rounds, and they are physical challenges, and they are ranging from a pour test to a shaker tin stack to a tray carrying competition. A lot of it involved a lot of water.
Which was good because it was about 100 plus yesterday.
Yes. And the second round is our Helping Hands cocktail competition, and it requires 2 people, one in front, one behind. The person behind can use their hands for the person in front, who is the eyes for the hands behind. So it's encouraging teamwork and camaraderie with integrity in our community.
And this year's theme, everybody dressed like teams of superheroes. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Just kind of our silent heroes and sometimes villains. We like to just add a little bit of fun to tie it into our everyday. The people who work really hard for our local businesses as a team to really get the job done.
Tonight's event that's taking place at the playground is a really great excuse if you haven't been lately to the playground. The Knife Fight. Will you talk about what's happening tonight?
It's part of the tournament, Knife Fight, and a component of that is Cocktail Fight, which will open Knife Fight. And it's a tournament-style cocktail competition. Tonight will be round 2, and very much in a chopped format. The competitors are given secret ingredients, and they use that to showcase their talents to compete against one another.
And it gets judged, and just like in Chopped or Iron Chef, you have a limited amount of time, and they work fast and furious. And the results can be surprisingly delicious. Rachel DeQuesta is on the phone, and she is the new president of the United States Bartenders Guild, and she also works at the Playground. I don't know that we've ever had a chance in recent memory to chat about the Playground. Back when Drew Record was there several years ago, we would visit and chat. But you guys have really evolved into a place that is kind of the hub of the fun wheel of downtown. Would you talk about what the Playground is today? Because if people feel like they knew the Playground before, I'm going to urge you to rediscover this amazing fun place.
Playground's known most for the nightclub on Friday and Saturdays, but that's a small portion of what we do there. And we've really developed a strong, diverse background of programs to host community events, whether it's supporting live local music, our things like Knife Fight or Cocktail Fight, to sports. We host the Kevin Sumlin Show tonight. He'll talk about the latest U of A football game in Hawaii and what's to come for the season. We invite our furry dog friends from the community and host fundraisers. But
you guys will have trivia competitions. You'll have...
Yep.
I mean, it's amazing. And then the great thing about Playground to me is you also become the public forum. You're like our piazza in the sense that if any big event is going on in the world, let's just say it was time for the Olympics, I would come to Playground to watch an event because some events just are more fun when you watch them in a convivial public way. Let's just say the University of Arizona's football season kicked off with a game in Hawaii. Well, wouldn't that have been fun to watch with a lot of friends? I come down every time I can for that kind of event. I was there this year for the Kentucky Derby, and it was really fun to be there. And it just lends itself to real conviviality. Will you talk about that notion? Because you can't be so involved with everything that you do with USBG, et cetera, without being acutely aware of how welcoming, hospitable, and cultivating of conviviality the Playground is. Talk about how you bring that to life.
We really try and make it a space where people can go and continue that notion of community or find community and create community, whether it's with sports or unions like marriage or competitions. It's a place where people can come together and enjoy each other and create together that strong foundation for community.
Talk to me about some of the signatures that are your signature elements at the Playground. Do you have signature cocktails, and do you have a signature food dish, a signature bar snack that you can share? Because I want to entice people to come down and hang out and basically play with you at the Playground.
Our cocktail menu is actually just being updated. It will be released October 1st, but it's all Arizona-based spirits. So anything distilled in Arizona, we currently have on our back bar.
Oh, cool.
And we've created fun favorites and twisted them with some regional products, like a prickly pear mojito, or our take on a margarita, which is an El Guapo with Mexican candy rim. Things like that. You can really find a sense of Arizona. We go for... since we are so invested in community, we have a strong Arizona-made product base, and at times you can meet a distiller or a brewer. And our food is similar, fun pub food with regional twists. We have favorites like nachos, but we call them Tostitos Locos, and they're sort of loaded like you would get at the local taco shop with carne asada, guacamole, crema, and it's just a really fun regional twist. You can go and have a real sense of place, but it's also familiar.
We're talking with Rachel DeQuisto from the USBG Tucson chapter. Yesterday was the Barlympics, and that brought together the mixologists, bartenders, and bar chefs from our community in teams competing in head-to-head events intended to be a lot of fun. Who were the big medalists yesterday?
Oh, it was quite an upset, but in the end, La Cocina, downtown in the Presidio, took first place.
Really?
And yes, those girls really, they pulled a little bit of, not surprisingly, but an upset, and they have a well-deserved first place. Roadhouse Cinema, who everyone's favorite theater, they have a strong cocktail community with their bartenders.
Now, I love that you're telling me this, because I mean I love Roadhouse, but I didn't know that they had that there.
They do. They have a bar, and they really like to participate in community events when they can. And it was just great. They took second. And our favorite neighborhood cocktail bar, Sidecar, over at Broadway near Country Club, took third.
Wow.
They were the reigning champs last year, so they made way for Roadhouse and La Cocina, but still kept a place.
This is shocking, because I had been talking to Ryan Hoffman from the AC, and he really does have one of the best bars downtown. And if you want a real appreciated, he's right across the way from you. But I thought he had put together a dream team, and with his, approach, I kind of thought the sort of, wonderful genius that he is. I think he wore that lab coat in that kind of Dr. Evil kind of way. This is very, we're very happy to hear about all of this. Hey, Rachel, we'll see everybody tonight, but what time is Bar Fight, and what time can we invite people to come down? Because this is open to the public. In fact, because it's a fundraiser for the Pat Connors Foundation that gives back to the hospitality industry, we really want to encourage people to come out and hang out with us tonight. So what time and where should they head?
Well, if you come early for dinner, the Coach Sumlin show from U of A football will be there with Brian Jeffries at 7 p.m. Directly following at 8 p.m., the rooftop will be open for Knife Fight. Cocktail Fight starts at 8:30, and Knife Fight directly follows.
That's awesome. And Playground is located where?
We are located on the corner of 5th and Congress, just across from Hotel Congress.
Thank you so much for everything you do in your leadership and your hospitality for our industry, for the community. I'm really grateful you could call in and take time to tell us about everything. But particularly, I'm really grateful that you have chosen to take up the leadership position you have with the USBG, help young members, new members, and that's the continuity that we need. We need people in this industry to say, I'm gonna help pass this along. And as stewards of the gift of hospitality, I'm really grateful to you for all that you're doing. I really wanted to salute you and give you some respect about that. It takes a lot of time, but I'm grateful for the results. Thank you so much. Rachel DeQuesta from the Playground.
Thank you.
We're going to take a very quick break. Up next, Dawn is going to be here with us. Coach Dawn is one of the great coaches in town. She was life coaching before anybody even knew what that phrase was or meant. We've missed her. She's been our colleague on the airwaves a long time, and she's going to be up next. This is Around the Table, live from the City of Gastronomy on AM 1030 The Voice. Trusted local news and talk. 520-790-2040. We'll be back with more right after this. but she is. She joins us after a summer vacation where I am sure she had a well-deserved recharging of the batteries. She joins us from her, I want to call it your workshop, because you do extraordinary things. I've missed you. Welcome home.
Yes, thank you very much. It seems to have been a long, hot summer, and it's still hot out there, I've noticed.
I know, but you went somewhere cool, and you've recharged your batteries.
Yes, and I'm ready and raring to go for life.
So here we are at the end of a season, the end of the summer season. It's not quite summer solstice going into autumn solstice. We have a little ways to go for that. But we're feeling it. The students are back. The university's back. Talk a little bit about your work and helping us understand how we can align ourselves to smoothly transition from season to season.
Well, I think the first thing is you have to know who you are. You have to be really clear about who you are, and then you have to live that way. And the majority of us don't. We put on this one facade at work, and then we have another facade at home, so we're playing a role. And it's really important where we're at in our evolution for us to own being who we are. Mm-hmm. Saying what we really feel and saying what we really mean, asking lots of questions. But definitely in our evolution, we're going towards, being able to or recognize that we need to ask more questions. Mm-hmm. We're in a time of learning as well. Mm-hmm. We're in a huge time of learning, not just because of the time of year, but just where we're at in, evolution of the human race. I always think back to the fact that if you look back over history, it was all about things to do with supposedly improving things, really to do with making more money, but it's okay. Like, the cotton industry and then, the Industrial Revolution and all these different things were focused. Technology, it was all focused on things. And I was always wondering, well, when do we catch up psychologically to all this stuff? Like, when's going to be the moment when we suddenly realize that this need for money or things is not really going to help us it doesn't mean it's not, to have some of it is not a bad thing. It's just not the only thing. And it would seem to me, based on the things I read, people I talk to, certainly the people I work with, that we are definitely in a phase of evolution where we're asking ourselves more questions about who are we and where are we going and what do we want to do as individuals, rather than how do I fit myself into such and such a slot.
In the first hour of the show today, Ramone Valadez, the Pima County supervisor, was with us, and we have a theme of the day every week when he's on with us. This week's theme, as you know, was curiosity, and it was a celebration and exploration of the art of questions. And in the second hour, your take and your spin on this topic is really compelling and interesting to me because it speaks more to a sort of divine inspiration and a sense of self-awareness. But I'm going to go back a step and ask you about the work you do with your coaching clients and their personal coaching and business coaching and life coaching. How important is the question as a tool or a device in the work that you do, in the teaching that you do, and how important a device is it as a tool in the arsenal of your clients?
It's the most important. Questioning is the most important. It's the thing that the majority of people don't do. Somebody says to you, asks you to do something, and we don't necessarily say, well, what's that for? Or where's that going to go? Or how's that going to help you or me? Or, or somebody will say something that we don't really understand. And instead of questioning them, like, I don't really understand what you're saying. Can you say it in a different way? so that we understand it. We go, oh. And then we have no idea what the person is talking about. So now we have a barrier between us. However, if the person had said, no, I don't get what you're talking about. I just said this to somebody the other day. They mentioned something. I had no idea what they were talking about. It had something to do with some kind of punk rock band. So how would I know anything about that? And so they said something about this name, and I went, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. And they're like, oh, you don't know who so-and-so is. And I said, no, but however, I'd love to be enlightened. Would you like to tell me about them? The questions that we have to ask people do not include the question why. Because you may as well be asking, if God exists, because it's a question that never gets answered. And people become defensive and closed down when you ask them why. When you ask them who, what, when, where, and how questions, it moves the conversation forward. It doesn't look to blame, shame, or judge anybody. What that does is recognizes that there might be something that's going on, and let's move forward. And what do we do with that? So, okay, so you broke your toe and you were supposed to be going to Europe. So how do we want to handle this? Do you want to cancel your trip? Do you want to reschedule it? Is it going to cost you too much money? Are you still going to go? Will you need somebody to go with you? Like, questions. Questions. Because unless we know, how are we going to do anything? A lot of my clients, a lot of people I work with are females who want to start their own businesses. And what I call it is monetizing your gifts and talents, because that's what really we're doing. If you're really doing what you love, you're monetizing your gifts and talents. I do it, you do it, and anybody else who's in something that they love does it. So questioning is the first thing, because I will ask, I have this wonderful thing that I say, would you like me to give it to you? Would you like me to say it on the air? Let's see if anybody else is listening.
Always.
I ask people to close their eyes. You can do this. And to imagine you are on an airplane. You're coming back to Arizona, and you're being asked to get strapped in, and you've been away for a month. And the reason that you've been away for a month is that you won $485 million on the Arizona lottery. And, of course, you had to get out of Dodge immediately because people came out of the woodwork looking for money. So you took your family and some close friends, and you went to Tahiti for a month because you had to figure out what you're going to do with this. Whilst you were there, you hired a financial consultant, and you took the $85 million and you split it into two pots. One was to every charity that you'd ever wanted to give to every place that you thought deserved money. The other was to the family and the friends that you wanted to pay off their cars, set up a trust fund for your niece and nephew. You still got $400 million, and you're getting ready to land in Tucson. And the flight attendant says to you, wow, that's incredible what you've done. I know that there is a caveat that you have to do something when you get home. So how are you going to spend your time and energy? Now, usually, think about that. Usually, at that point, my clients or anybody I ask will tell me what they truly love. So I repeat it back to them, and they're excited. And then the question is, what stops you doing that? And you can't use money as an excuse, because money is the number one excuse we use for everything. When I started this business that I have, we had a $950 mortgage on our very first house in Wheatfield Drive. My husband got out of the military and got $150 on unemployment, and I did not take a job that paid me $90,000 a year in the real estate business. This was in 1996, and I had a one-year-old. I had $5,000, and I ran out of money within a month. We ran up every credit card. We missed the first payment of our mortgage, and we thought we were going to have our car repossessed. My husband got a job, and I suddenly got coaching. I started learning how to be a coach really quickly, very quickly. And everything changed, and everything got paid back very quickly. But I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to take my 20 years in the corporate business world and put it together with something that was new and interesting and different. And some of that had a metaphysical and an alternative tinge to it, and some of it has a traditional tinge to it as well. So it's a combination, and it really celebrates my gifts and talents. And yeah, you might say, well, she sounds really, like full of herself. No, we need to all be that way.
Right.
Because I do not believe we were put on this earth to work 5 days a week doing something we don't like, so we can have 2 days to recover from it, so we can go back to doing it for another 5 days. I mean, what is that? That's not living. We have to do what we love. And this is how the evolution of where we're going is sort of coming out. It's usually coming out with women, actually. It's starting more with women, I've noticed, because they are saying, at 40, 45, 50, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
My kids are grown, or they're going to college, or they're just ready, to be gone. And I'm doing something I don't really want to do, and I don't want to spend my time doing that anymore. So we're becoming more evolved, in that way. And the more questions we ask of ourselves, and people will say to me when I ask them, so what stops you doing that? And you can't use money as an excuse. They always say, I don't know how. And I always say the same thing. You cannot know how to do something until you know what it is you want to do. And all you've told me is something in 30 seconds you want to do. You couldn't possibly know how to do something if you are not clear about what it is. I have a written mission, vision, who, what, and how. I know exactly who I want to work with. I know exactly what I want to work with them on. And I know exactly what I offer to do that. And we all have to do that individually in our own lives. When you're looking for your, you can still work for other people if you want. Go look for your ideal job. What is it? Write your ideal job out and then go look for it. Do it the other way around. We've always lived in this world where it's, up to the corporation or the company to hire us. We're always grateful. We go for an interview. But it's a two-way street. They're getting you. Yes, they're paying you, but they're getting you, and you're doing a service for them, and it needs to be more equal. And until we've moved into that, that's going to take a lot longer. But until we've moved into that recognition, we're going to have to go through those kind of changes with companies because of the way millennials are. They're not going to put up with this stuff. Millennials are just not. And the generation Z, so we're going to have to adjust. And they ask lots of questions, I notice.
Right.
Lots and lots of questions.
Right.
And that's how you know what your truth is. And you can only know what your truth is. And what works for you may not work for somebody else. What works for me may not work for somebody else. So it really is that, take what you need and leave the rest. Take what you learn that really strikes you in your core as being, that rings a bell to me. That's got a ring of truth to me. And then explore, ask questions. Do I love my job,
And only you can answer that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know the questions to ask to get people to tell me what's really going on inside of them. And it's you, and I'm this is not psychological. I'm not a psychologist, I'm a coach. Very different. Psychologists and therapists, they ask a lot of why questions because they want you in your feelings. They want you to be digging up the past. I only want to look at the past in terms of how it can help you move forward. What have you learned from it? Because you can't change it. Unless somebody comes to me with a time machine, you can't change the past. What you have to do is, what did I learn from it? What can I do with what happened in the past? Can I leave some of it in the past? Did I learn? What is the lesson I learned? And what do I need to do differently? What do I need to do for myself? It's a lot of that. And we've also become used to people saying that you're selfish when you do that kind of stuff, when you ask questions of yourself. It's like, oh, that's really selfish. Well, you cannot help anybody else if you don't help yourself first.
Put on your own mask first.
That's right. When you get on an airplane, if you've got children, the first thing they tell you is put on the mask on yourself first. Because if you've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, they ain't going to put the mask on you.
Dawn, I want you to tell everybody about the name of your business and your coaching work, and we're going to take a break right after that.
Okay. My business is Evolving You, and that's basically what I do. You can find me at 520-419-5419. And you can also check out my other page, which is Astrologer Dawn, ASTROLOGERDAWN.com, because what I use for a basis is your human design chart and your astrological chart, whereas other coaches will use different tools to understand the client, who the client is at their core. That's what I use. And I found mine to be very successful.
We're going to take a very quick break. 520-790-2040 is the number you can call and ask Dawn anything about how to improve your happiness in the work that you do, in the world that you're at, the life that you're in, and the dreams that you have. She's the sort of person that can help get you the clarity, the essential clarity necessary to go to that next step. We'll be back with more right after this. This is Around the Table live from the City of Gastronomy on AM 1030 The Voice, KV.com. We'll be right back. This is Around the Table live from the City of Gastronomy, AM 1030 The Voice, trusted local news and talk. Dawn is with us, and she is a woman of many talents, many gifts, many roles. She wears many hats, and she's here today in a duality, let's say. Not only is she here as one of the preeminent life coaches in the region, internationally renowned for the work that she does at Evolving You, but in the world of media, you might have recognized her voice as that of Astrologer Dawn. And so the beauty of the work that you do in the different disciplines in which you are an expert is that you inform and you have the ability to weave these two worlds together really quite compellingly and richly. And so I'm going to have you explain to us about the duality of your world and the other dimension of the work that you do.
You mean the astrological human design piece?
Yes.
So what I discovered many, many years ago, and lots of coaches will use different kinds of tests to discover more about their clients. So, and individually we may take tests. So there's like the Strong Campbell, we've got the DISC, we've got Myers-Briggs, we've got Caliper. There's a lot of different tests that you can be asked a ton of questions. And what I discovered as I take them more and more is that they change depending upon where I'm at. So they change depending upon whether I'm happy when I answer, or whether I'm sad, or whether I've got something good going on or something bad. So the tests are different, will make me a different person depending upon what's going on with me emotionally. That doesn't work for me, because to me that's not logical. So what's logical is to have a system where you can truly see who the person is at their core and recognize that that when they're out of alignment with that, they'll just be going to the left or the right of it. And it's just about bringing yourself back into core. And the only way that I could the things that I could find that you couldn't change involved your date of birth, your place of birth, and your time of birth. And those things are covered by astrology and human design. Now, astrology has been around thousands upon thousands of years. Human design is relatively new, within the last 25 years. And it still uses the same information, but it gives me information about people that when we talk about it, it's easy to validate them, and also see where they've been held back. I had this one client on the Cayman Islands. I work on the Cayman Islands quite a lot. And I have a client on the Cayman Islands who went to school to be an accountant. She'd spent 23 years being an accountant, and she hated it. She ended up not getting married, not having any children. That's because, her family was very much into, you need to stay in this job, you need to do this and this, and she hated it. So when she came to me for coaching, that was the first thing she told me. She hated it, and I asked her what her passion was. And she goes to people's houses and revamps their gardens. She's like at their home, so she's a designer. So we discovered she's a designer, and she always loved that. So she quit her job. She got a pension from them because she'd been for 20-odd years. She'd been there 25 years or something like that. Started when she was very young, when she was 18. And went to school. First of all, she went off to Italy. She didn't like Florence. So then she came to New York, and she's in design, in her second year of design school, and she is not an accountant. And she's in the summer right now, so she should be going back to New York shortly. But in the summer, she has had 3 different design organizations ask her about coming to work for them. So it's like, not as an accountant, as a designer. And it's never too late. It's never too late to start a new career, to do something different. You know, that's what we need to do, is to, you know, to start something different. And the only way to find out who you really are, I truly believe, is to, you know, look at what I consider, you know, your charts, to see, you know, how you process things. You can see that in your charts, where your intuition lies in your body, how you deal with toxic environments, whether you are consistent in your promises. These things you can't change, because the goal is not to make you something other than you are, not to fit in. The goal is to reinforce who you are and validate who you are, and then show up like that in the world.
So one of the things that I hear when I hear you say that is intrinsic in this is the very essential premise of self-awareness.
Oh yeah. It's the first thing. It's the absolute first thing. It's the thing I wish sometimes I could take back. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I wish I could go back to being a secretary when I was 17 years old in England, and just, you know, wasn't aware at all. Although my mum read cards and talked to the dead, so I guess I was a little bit aware, but not really. And it was easy. I had my job. I loved it. I loved the people I worked with. We went to nightclubs. You have to remember, we graduated at 16 in England. We were in nightclubs at 17. It was all about, you know, I was in a band, and it was just, you know, not the awareness that I have now. I'd love to just go back to that, and the ease and the grace. And
so I'm going to, in the minutes that we have left, ask you to put on your Astrologer Dawn hat and tell us where we are, because if you, like me, have been aware with self-awareness that the stars and the planets were giving you very powerful lessons.
Yes.
That there were big lessons. And it's not just for me because of my sign. There are big things happening. A lot of us are going through the big macro lesson learning stage of life right now. Will you tell us where we're at?
Yes. Well, and this has been in the past couple of years. And this has to do with the planet Saturn, which has to do with obstacles and challenges you're here to overcome, and also boundaries that you need to set in order you can overcome these obstacles, of course. And then also Pluto, which is about transformation, and it's the slowest moving planet, which is why we transform, which is why I'm not like I am when I'm 17. You know, I'm going to be 60 next month. So it's like I'm not like that anymore, because we, you know, grow. And so those two areas happen to be in the sign of Capricorn, which rules business. So there is definitely a lot of change going on, and this is for men and women, around work and around how they're seen and what they're doing and how they're making money. This isn't just America, by the way. This is everywhere. People are reevaluating what is of value. Somebody sent me something the other day. One of my coaching clients, I asked her to write me her ideal day. So she sent it to me, and my email back to her was, how much is this going to cost you a year to live like this? And of course, her answer was, I have no idea. And my answer to that is homework. You know, we say we want to live a certain kind of life. That's part of what we're here to do now, is what is that? What do you want to do? And how much do you really need to make? Because it rules money as well. So we're looking at money. We're looking at values. In the bigger picture, we need to thank God for President Donald Trump, and not for the reasons that you might think. We have more females, more people of color, more people whose sexuality is out there, and nobody's taking any notice. It's like, yeah, you're just another person, but in a good way. And then people stepping up for the rights of everybody. This would not have happened. This would not have happened. And before he came to power, there's a group of us astrologers. We looked at Saturn and Pluto, and we said, what would be the biggest thing that could happen? And once we knew Trump was he was the nominee, we knew that's what it was. That's what it had to be, because this is about huge shift and change in governments as well. Look at Brexit. In my country of origin, not my own country, I'm an American citizen, although maybe I'll be sent somewhere else. It's like there's a massive change going on, and it's combined with all of us asking, what do we value? Is money the most important thing, or are there other considerations that we need to take in life, in living this life? Because this is a journey. Destination is death. We all need to know that. Destination is death. This is the journey. What do you want that journey to look like? Because although I believe in reincarnation, as far as I'm concerned, this is the only life I know about. So this is the one where we have to be clear about what do we value. For the next few months, just take a look at what do you value? What is important? Is it your family? Is it spending time with your family? Is it doing something that you love work-wise? What is it that's important to you? And it's time to follow that. So where we're at is we're in this. I love the whole idea of the questioning, because that question yourself. What would I do if money wasn't an object? And please get out of your head. When you hear the voices start telling you all the reasons why, you're in your head. Go back to if money were no object, how would I spend my time and energy? Yeah. You get on a plane, you travel all over the world, you give money away, and blah, blah, blah. And then you're bored. And then what? And then what do you do? That's the kind of thing that coaches do. They ask questions. And then what? And then what? And then what? Because you're not going to win the lottery. The chances are nobody's going to win the lottery that you know even. So what you've got to do is you've got to create what it is for yourself and get input from other people. You don't know if you create something that somebody's going to come along and be an angel investor. You don't know that. You'd be amazed at what happens when you put out to the universe what it is you want.
Please give everybody the contact information to find you.
You can find me at 520-419-5419. That is also on my website. I'm going to give you the Astrologer Dawn website. That's got information about all the work that I do. You can find coaching information there. You can find radio stations that I'm on there. You can also find information about my metaphysical stuff.
And that's astrologerdawn.com. Dawn, thank you so much.
You're welcome. We should be talking soon.
I know. That wraps up this session of lunch. John C. Scott is up next. It is my great privilege to share these airwaves with him. He does a really terrific show, and it's an honor to do this lead-in for him. I will urge you, please, when you get home today, hug your kids and count your blessings. We'll see you tomorrow.